Speech bubbles. Their utilization and placement can change everything. And yet they often go uncelebrated, unsung. Not unseen, but perhaps unnoticed. Lettering and word bubble / balloon placement is oftentimes one of those thankless tasks where if done correctly, no one says anything. But if done badly, then you hear all about it. Because then it's going to impact the flow of the story, just the art. It can really mess things up if it's not done well. But dialogue bubbles can be more than just legible, or cutely or quirkily placed or colored. Because of the visual nature of comic book storytelling, they can be used to connote key details. They can convey information about the players involved in ways that can range from subtle to quite obvious. One work that does this a lot is Tom Strong. That's right, we're back in Tom Strong land. A bunch of y'all responded to Tom Strong. For Tom Strong, the amount of people that came and said they wanted to read it and watched it, that's amazing, because not a lot of people, it seems like, have really heard of this one. And yes, those are pieces of tissue in the top that I'm using to mark my plays, just like that Lois Lane book all over again. Only that one was bits of construction paper. Now, we've recently talked about Tom Strong from an overview perspective, that of it being an overlooked and underappreciated work. So if you missed that, check it out. Also, we're going to be discussing a wide range of things, so potentially we might come to things that are revealed later on. So even though this is a series that is over a decade old at this point, time of recording, spoiler. For those who want to check it out themselves, not know anything that happens to Tom or some of his secrets. Although I don't think we're going to get too deep into many of the secrets in this, but we'll see. Now, for those who missed that video and just want the cliff notes, just who is Tom Strong? Tom Strong is a science hero steeped in tropes from the Golden and Silver Ages. Born on a secret island at Abartaru, he spent his childhood till age 8 raised as a science experiment. He was released when an earthquake broke his pressure chamber and killed his parents. From that point on, he was raised by the local inhabitants of the island, the Ozu, and his robot butler, the Pneumatic Man, or Newman. He would leave to see the world his parents hailed from, America, and would become the defender of Millennium City, as well as just a whole bunch of other places. But while there, he would battle some science villains, most notably Paul Dorian Savine. I'm going to say his whole name the first time because that's what he does. He's dramatic like that. You got the Megamind approach. You got to have presentation. Tom would return to Abartaru on occasion as his volcanic home was still there, and he would marry the chief's daughter, Delua, and they would have a daughter of their own, Tesla, and they would also add a hyper-intelligent and seemingly British gorilla to their entourage, King Solomon. Created by Alan Moore and Chris Sprouse for ABC Comics, Tom would have a variety of adventures with interesting storytelling that would play with different art styles, homages to classics, and many stories would hop forward and back in Tom's life, all slowly coming together to create a complete tapestry. Tom Strong is vignette-y, and it is possible to find that a bit off-putting, especially at the start. It could feel as though things are just happening, but all of these events are adding layers, and they're actually going to come together, not in some kind of long overarching narrative, but after reading all of these stories together, you get a more complete picture. This is the kind of work that gets stronger the more you reread it. The details sprinkled throughout have weight and lead to one of the strongest, pun intended, and best executed alternate universe stories I've ever seen in the Tom Stone arc. And for a work that is not a deconstruction, but instead is reveling in these tropes and instead just enjoying these elements of superhero comics, rather science hero comics, you get pretty deep in that one. That arc really makes you take a look at Tom Strong and his methods and showcases how his upbringing and largely his father really altered how he turned out, and as a result, the people around him and how that impacted the entire world. It's very exciting and I really want to dive into it. But before that, I got waylaid by speech bubbles. You may be wondering, what does all of this have to do with speech bubbles? A lot, actually. There's a key blink and you'll miss it detail in these stories. It's a detail that's utilized throughout the majority of the series in his main 36-issue run. And it's illustrated through his speech bubbles. And that's that Tom Strong is loud. Just in general, he's just a loud man. As mentioned, lots of details can be presented through a character's text bubbles. And several methods are employed in this work. I keep pointing down because it's on my lap. Characters with accents will tend to have them written in. You'll have certain spellings of words or slang thrown in, which, while it gets the point across, can vary in its effectiveness. The fact that Newman runs on steam is illustrated through the constant hissing present in his dialogue. The modular man, being made up of a multitude, was evidenced not only by his font's shape, but also by the mirror images of text creating an echo-like effect. Now, all of these mentioned are more visually distinct cues, or things that really hit you. It's like, oh, that character has an accent. Oh, look, that character seems like they maybe sound a bit slimy because their text is dripping, or things like that. But the detail we're about to discuss, I didn't notice until I was nearly done reading all of these issues the first time through. The first time, I only ever know that Tom was loud subconsciously. That is until issue 29. This was not one of the more issues, but an Ed Brubaker two-parter with art by Duncan Fegredo, colors Carrie Strachan, part 1, and And Michelle Madsen Part 2. Letters, Todd Klein. And Todd Klein is just handling the letters for every issue. The story starts off as your standard Tom Strong fare. He has to stop one of his classic villains who is now elderly. Tom Strong ages extremely slowly thanks to ingesting a special root called Galoka that has drastically extended his lifespan. This villain, Eldon Morovia, used to work closely with his arch nemesis Savine. Now Morovia's thing was powerful ancient artifacts, and it's still his thing. He's looking for the crown of Kukulkan, which he plans to use to rewrite the world so that it no longer revolves around Tom Strong, which is a conclusion that he's come to, that the world seems to be centered around him. He's also especially put out by the stronghold, yes, pun, that Tom Strong lives in. What follows is your standard reverse isekai plot. Now in your standard version of this plot, you get transported to a fantastical realm. Oh, it's so exciting. Mythology, into a computer, just anything outside of your ordinary realm. So of course the reverse is that you get sucked into the mundane ordinary world. And they really sell it hard. The art style changes, the colors get more muted, like all the joy has just been sucked out. Now as far as these types of plots go, it's fairly standard on the story front. Its strengths include the fact that while it is playing in well-trodden territory, it does go for it. And it has a decent fake-out twist before the final reveal, even though it's never really a secret. We always know that it's not a real world. There's no guessing that, oh my god, was Tom always? No, of course not. At the end of the day, it's what you would expect from a story like this, but the strongest attributes that the story brings are in the small visual details. And that includes the speech bubbles. Tom Strong in this universe is in a dead-end job, is unhappily married, and going to therapy to deal with these vivid dreams he has about this amazing other life that happen every night, and that his doctor has dubbed serial dreaming. And it's during this session where Tom is chastised by the doctor for doing the voice. I've tried to explain this to you, Tom. It's a phenomenon known as serial dreaming. Serial dreamers have more trouble than usual believing their dreams are not real because one dream leads directly into the next. Like an episode of a television show or a pulp hero's exploits, like this Tom Strong you dream about.
Yes, I understand that. I guess I just don't see why
Tom, you're doing it again. Your voice.
Sorry, I talk loud sometimes. I don't know why. I'm sorry, Dr. Leach.
Now this, upon first reading, stopped me cold. I fell down the rabbit hole of, wait, has Tom been using the voice this entire time? Has he just been yelling at people through all of these issues? And the answer is sorta kinda. He's not yelling like he was in this scene, but he was upset. But he is louder than other people. He's projecting. I went back to the very first issues. I had to know, were his dialogue boxes bigger? And the answer was, for the most part, with rare exceptions, where either it's aping another style, like the classic Silver Age style of the first encounter between him and Savine, which repairs Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. And so then the art style is very much playing in those rigid squares, and so everything's more uniform. Also, there are situational exceptions, such as characters who are way bigger than him, or cases of distance and the like. But it becomes a generality that forms a rule. So that's just worth noting. Tom's bubbles are bigger. Sometimes just subtly or slightly, but they are bigger, and his text is slightly bolder, whether he's in the foreground or not, whether he has cause to be yelling or not. He's just louder than other people, consistently. And once you see this detail, it cannot be unseen. And it both changes everything and nothing. So what do I mean by that? Well, to get to that, we need to answer the root question of, why is Tom Strong loud in the first place? And there's more than one answer to that. The most obvious is he's a big man. He's just large, tall, takes up space. And so his voice matches that. It's a compliment to his physique, a little subtle visual cue to showcase that, yeah, he's loud. Now, it's less notable that these are large when he's with another heroic character, because then sometimes they'll be really close or the same size, like when he's hanging out with Tom Strange. He's also, as the name implies, strong. And that comes with a cultural expectation, rightly or wrongly, of a deep, booming voice. He's also positioned as a hero, a leader, an icon. And those things also come with certain subconscious expectations of loud, deep voices. He's acknowledged as the city's protector, and they look up to him. He's larger than life. There's a statue to him on his building. The stronghold. Again, his voice, as demonstrated subtly through the size of his text and balloons and the font itself, is conveying this. Now, if you want to go deeper, which you know I always do, one could question if there is a physical element to this. Tom Strong was raised for 8 years in a gravity/pressure chamber, and he didn't even have Vegeta there to egg him on/abuse him. And one wonders if being raised in such an environment increased his lung capacity. Can he actually just not help being loud? As As seen in this nightmare sequence, he has to force himself to be quiet and to make himself smaller. And then that kind of makes him feel a bit ashamed, and it just adds to the whole sadness of that entire nightmare world. Because there's so many nice visual things, like how he's hunched and just everything to try and convey that Tom Strong is just too big for this world. So this detail, while it doesn't change the narrative itself, things still happen the same way if Tom Strong has the same size dialogue boxes as other people, although this therapy scene wouldn't pack as much punch because you could just read it as referring to the bolded text in the therapy session. But when you add in this detail, the whole work becomes richer. You have a whole new avenue of storytelling to examine. It's this additional layer to the character, and it adds to the other things that are already there. It helps define part of who he is, both from his history and thematically, and it's handled with such grace that one may not even ever consciously be aware of it. And that's really masterfully handled, because it's a trick you have to balance, because if you make them too big to the point where everybody notices, then it just seems like he's cartoonishly yelling at everybody all the time, and that conveys a very different message. There are so many interesting things to explore with Tom. He has a lot more depth than Moore gives him credit for, and it's showcased throughout the stories in various ways. Tom has been shown to have stress about knowing he's a bit emotionally distant because of being raised in a pressure chamber. He also has a tendency, when things get difficult, to withdraw, to be alone, because it's something that he's used to. And you add this nightmare where he's sheepish about being louder, and it just adds this whole question about what insecurities he struggles with in this world. It also highlights how special his world and his family are, that he can just be himself, stand up straight, talk at his full volume, and no one's gonna call him out or make fun of him or chastise him or belittle him for it. Moore calls this work simple, but with such a nice layering detail littered throughout, I want to see what counts as really complicated. Although in all fairness, it's not convoluted, so in that sense it is simple. But it's highly effective, so it's simple in the best way. Now when Tom realizes that he is in a dream, and that Eldon almost tricked him, you get to see his loud voice return, and it's very satisfying.
You can stop right there, Eldon, it's over. No, it's not fair. I won that time. God damn it.
Also, side note, that other world was bleak for everyone, not just Tom. It's not like we just had to end it because Tom was having a bad time. It wasn't, world ends, Tom Strong most affected. Now, the ending of this issue is really sweet, and I just want to share it with you. It's a moment between him and his daughter Tesla.
See that world that Morovia created, the world I was imprisoned in, it was a terrible place. The skies were always gray, the politicians were all liars, the people lived in loneliness and fear, there was no sense of adventure or wonder, and my life was so empty. Without you and your mother, without our friends, and I just realized no place like that could actually exist, outside the mind of a madman, that is, and that realization broke the spell, simple as that.
Wow, it sounds really bad.
Worse than you can imagine, Tesla.
The comic medium is such an awesome art form, and you can utilize it in so many creative ways, and it's really exciting to think about all the different avenues and little tricks and details that you can add to just add layers to your story and just really make a complete tapestry. It can be so effective and clever in ways that can often be overlooked or forgotten. Again, unless you see them done badly. Compare this text bubble usage to, say, giant walls of text that are blocking everything. Or in our last punchline video, narration boxes that are colored in such a way that they can actually make it difficult to read them because of the interplay of the colors on your eyes. So when I see something like this, I really appreciate it, and I want to bring it out and call attention to it. Tom Strong is loud, and that's a solid character and world building detail. I think this may be the nerdiest video I've ever done. But things like this, they get me really excited. I found it thrilling to go back through here and just examine all of it. It's like being a detective. I'm ready for the archives. Now I did of course check to see whether this carried on through to, say, the Terrifics. It alas did not. I hope that you enjoyed this. I know that it was very niche. Dare I say, a niche within a niche. Side note, Tom Strong's not perfect. There are some things that are a bit annoying about it. There's some issues in here that I don't like, just like anything. I just wanted to bring that up because there were some people who are bringing up flaws. It's like, yeah, it does have flaws. It's not perfection, but there are so many things in it that are really well executed. I want to keep talking about Tom, but I'm not sure which angle to take. The obvious best and worst stories, or just going way too deep into video essays about Sinclair Strong and Paul Dorian Savine. I know what the correct answer is for YouTube, but I know what my heart wants. Anyway, I want to hear what you want to hear about, and also I want to hear about a time that a comic book detail just blew your mind. I can't wait to hear about them. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It helps give the algorithm a swift kick in the pants. Also, if you feel so inclined, please consider joining here on YouTube or on Kofi. It helps support the channel. You also get some extra content, and we can keep making more videos like this one and others. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend it discussing discussing comics and the minutia of them with me, please comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and I will see you again soon. I'm not sure with what, but it's going to be interesting. I'll see you there. Bye-bye.